once we kind of took a look at that and we started to see some very common themes, and we sort of stood back and said, okay, does this feel like who we are? Is this our culture? Things like, yes, we can attitude. Like, we have a lot of people that will bend over backwards and do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so, that was one of the things that we said is we have this yes, we can attitude. So again, that was one of the things that we said. It's treating others with respect, making sure, ensuring our coworkers are going to have success. So things like that, we really tried to look at who we are, from top down, what other people said about us and how we felt about ourselves. And then we just defined it and said, hey, everybody, this is who we are.
So welcome back to Over A Pint podcast, the podcast that puts the focus on the fast-paced world of marketing told through the eyes of industry veterans. No theory here. This is real-world practical experience. And guys, this is episode 20. 20.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, we made it this far.
Legit.
Back in the saddle is El Presidente of Celtic Advertising, Mr. Brian Meehan, partner and vice president of Celtic Advertising, Kurt Lingle, and myself, director of new business development at Acedia, Pat McGovern. Guys, today I'm pumped to be talking to Chad Carney. Chad is VP of Marketing and Corporate Communications for Engage Technologies. If Engage sounds familiar to our listeners, you're not wrong. On episode 16, we talked to CEO David Milray. And David had some pretty amazing things to say about you, Chad. He's just a genuinely nice guy, and he was just super complimentary. As soon as we went off air, quote unquote, I'm like, David, can we talk to Chad? And his was, no problem. You just can't hire him. So, Chad, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome, Chad.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me. David is a very genuine person. He probably oversold me quite a bit, so I'll just apologize in advance for that. But no, yeah, David's a great person, and I'm fortunate to work for him and work with him. So thanks for having me. Yeah,
no, we're really excited to get into it. But our podcast is called Over a Pint. And that's what we usually have. And Mr. Lingle, you're going to start us off. What do you got, my man?
Well, you know what? I am drinking a porter from a brewery up in Amherst, Wisconsin. Central Waters Brewing, great brewery up there, that part of the state. This is their Mud Puppy. It's very good. Cheers. Great having you on the show, Chad.
Thank you.
Cheers. Gentlemen, a couple episodes ago, we had Jim Matugan from Interaction Media, if you recall. He's from West Virginia, and he was kind enough to send us a sampler of beers from Screech Owl Brewing in Brewston Mills, Wyoming. So I'm going to crack open this IPA. If I drink the whole thing, I probably won't make it to the end of this because it's quite large.
West Virginia.
So, yes, is that what I said? Cheers.
That's awesome. Cheers, guys. And one of those Who's Your Daddy IPAs is meant for me, so don't drink all of it, okay, man? I've got a Guinness. That's the last beer I've got in the house, and I'm glad I've got this one. So, Chad, you got anything today you want to promote?
Well, sure, absolutely. So, seeing as you guys are all from Wisconsin, I have to rep the fine state of Minnesota here. So today I'm drinking it's a Crusher IPA from Cuyuna Brewing Company up in Crosby, Minnesota. So if you guys are in a mountain like y'all, you're definitely going to want to check out Cuyuna Brewing Company in Crosby. It's a small town brewery, great mountain.
Crusher? Was that the name of it, Crusher?
Yep, Crusher IPA.
Okay, we'll plug them for sure.
Yeah,
give them some love.
Chad, where is Crosby at from the Twin Cities?
Oh, Crosby's north, kind of. Crosby's one of the first Iron Range cities. So if you're heading north, kind of up by Mille Lacs area, Big Lake, and central Minnesota, kind of up by Brainerd Lakes area, not too far from there. So
got it, way up there. Yeah, that's way up north for us. Yeah. Chad, again, welcome to the show. Let's get into it. So, and why don't we start? Why don't you give us a little bit about you, your background, your experience? Give us the elevator speech on Chad Carney, and while you're doing that too, tell us a little bit about Engage Technologies, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, yeah, you bet. Well, I mean, basically, I've been with Engage Technologies for quite a while, just a little over 23 years. And when I started with the organization, the company was obviously pretty small. We had just released our first inkjet printer. There was maybe 10 employees or so. And we've grown obviously since then. So Engage Technologies, just to give you a little bit of background on that, I'll jumping around here a little bit, but Engage Technologies consists of really three main brands. There's Squid Ink, which is we manufacture a complete line of coding and marking systems. So those are basically printers that print date codes on things like beer cans and beer bottles. You know, pretty much any farm or food and beverage product, there's a date code, a barcode, a batch code, those kinds of things.
Yep.
We make the printers that put that on the product. And so we've got a range of those from inkjet to laser to you know, thermal transfer, those kinds of things. So a lot of different technologies involved in that. So we've got Squid Ink as a brand. Easty is another brand of Engage Technologies, and Easty makes a line of packaging equipment. So we do like shrink wrapping equipment.
Okay.
So again, using that, you know, the can analogy. So if you think of like a 12-pack, or I'm sorry, a case of cans, those are put in a tray, and then those are shrink wrapped with film. We make the equipment that does that shrink wrapping, and then it goes into a tunnel, and that film shrinks to give you a nice secure package. So that type of equipment is used in a number of different industrial applications. Again, food and beverage. We make again, automation products, so things like case tapers, case erectors that erect boxes for packaging. So a number of different systems that are manufactured by Steve. And then the third brand is AFM, and AFM stands for American Film and Machinery. And AFM is we make a line of shrink sleeve labeling products. So shrink sleeve labeling is very popular right now in the beverage industry. So basically taking a sleeve and putting that around a can or a bottle, and then shrinking that around the product as well. So instead of a pre-printed can or like a pressure sensitive label, the entire product can be labeled with a shrink sleeve. So you get 360 degrees of coverage. You can do really cool things with the graphics, and on the printing, you can do matte finishes, gloss finishes, kind of a wide variety of options with that to really make your product stand out on the shelf. So that's really who Engage is. We manufacture and offer all those products. We sell through distribution, so everything we do is sold through distributors. We don't typically sell direct to the end user, so we work through that channel. And we sell through a global basis. So that's kind of who we are. We've had really consistent growth over the past 20 years. As I mentioned, when I first started, you know, we were just Squid Ink. And so we had basically one printer at the time that they had just released. And the company has grown over the years with organic growth as well as acquisitions. Both Easty and AFM were acquisitions.
That's awesome. Chad, thank you so much. And this is cool because this is hardcore B2B work, man. And this is not B2C at all. But I love it because I really think B2B marketing is a very, very interesting place to be. I think there's some of the biggest like changes in marketing I think are going to happen in the hardcore B2B space. And so let's get into it. So you're VP of marketing, but you're also in charge of corporate communications. Bit unusual, right? A lot of times corporate communication, that's something that's separate, that's like an HR type of function. Talk to us a little bit about that in both of those roles, please.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I'm not really sure, to be honest, how that really fell under me, but other than I think back, it goes back to when, you know, we were all wearing a lot of hats back in the day. My degree is actually in communications. My degree is in, I've got a Bachelor of Arts degree in studio art, so graphic design and communications. And so, you know, and maybe because of that, I had a communications background. I've done some writing, so I think it probably made sense, and it's just part of the role, I guess, that I have. So it seems to work out.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you know, I guess let's stick on marketing a little bit here. The question I have is, and it's a little bit open-ended. So, you know, it's not like there wasn't anything that had happened over the last 15, 18 months, right? It's pretty, pretty calm year, right? And I say that, yeah, from a marketing perspective. We've talked to a lot of guests from a lot of different categories, whether it's manufacturing, travel, tourism, and it's interesting, Chad, when these conversations take place, the conversations we were having last year, and we were asking folks the same question, is changing a little bit now when we ask folks the same question now. But let's look at where marketing is at right now. So obviously coming through 2020, we're halfway into 2021, which is just mind-boggling. I mean, in your opinion, looking at marketing, and I think of it as, you know, we're talking about B2B, which it is, but just marketing in general, marketing to whomever, internal, external, whatever audience it is, in your opinion, based on your day-to-day experience, talk to us a little about where you see marketing at right now, you know, the state of marketing, if you will, and, you know, in your opinion, what's working, what's not working, things that you would change, the experiences maybe that you've, were able to bring, incur in 2020, and now you're applying. Very open-ended question here, but maybe just talk, if you could, a little bit about, you know, where it's at in your opinion.
Yeah, boy, there's a lot of stuff there, Kurt. I mean, I think that one thing that I think we're all seeing is there's so much information that's available now, and there's so much information that we as marketers are able to collect on buyers and people and prospects. I think you know, just being able to track people on sites and what their online footprint is, and to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure if that's a great thing or not, but from a social standpoint, but that information and that data collection is all out there. We know what people's likes and dislikes are. We know what their buying habits are, or we're able to find that out. And so I think that information that's available is really important. And I think as far as like things that have changed, the just content. I mean, the amount of content that we as manufacturers need to provide, like there's never enough. There's never enough content that we have to have. And quite honestly, when COVID first hit, I mean, none of us will forget, but we basically, as an organization, you know, I mean, we sat in a meeting and I was like, okay, what are we going to do now, guys? Like, what are we going to do? Our sales reps can't go out in the field and make calls. Service technicians can't go out and help customers if they have installation or troubleshooting or maintenance issues and those kinds of things. We can't train our distributors, our distributor sales reps or service technicians. You know, what are we going to do? We got to keep the ship afloat. And so, you know, we pretty much immediately shifted a lot of our focus to video and content. And so it was, okay, we can do videos of sales demos. We can do like, we can shoot, you know, demonstrate product demonstrations in our facility. We can do things like online training. We can do like these little 5-10 minute videos on how to do things that we get asked all the time. We can do, and then we can use those for an online training program. You know, we can do a lot of these things by shooting video and doing you know, live Zoom calls and whatever it might be. And so we basically set up a number of different kind of studios in our facility so that we could, you know, we had a backdrop, we could haul equipment in there, we could shoot all these videos, and it was like every other day we were trying to do some type of video shooting and editing and get that out to our channels. And you know, that was just really how it hit, and that's been a big benefit for us. We were able to take that information and develop an online training program, a complete course of online training for one of our big products. And so we actually just released that
Wow.
about a month ago. We've had some people actually already go through it and give us some feedback on it. So yeah, that content and that video has been super important for us, and it's been a huge piece of what we've been doing the last year, and what we're continuing to do, definitely.
Yeah. One quick follow-up to that, if I could. I always find it interesting to find out how businesses react during different situations. They don't teach you how to, you know, forward a brand during a pandemic. They don't teach you that in business school, or, you know, when there's things like this that come up that we can't, you know, predict. You had talked about that commitment to video and content. Where were you at? What was the commitment level on video and content right before? Was that a direction you were going in already, Chad, or was it something where, you know, like, if we could look at the 30 days prior to when COVID hit to the 30 days after, what did it look like? You know, how did that compare to what you were doing and not doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kurt, and it's funny because we weren't doing that. We were doing a little bit of it, and it was always one of those things like, yeah, we really should do this, and it kind of got put off and put off, and you know, finally it was like, you know, it's the proverbial, you know, you got to make it happen. So
Yeah.
and it was just crystal clear, like this is what we have to do. And basically the next day we're shooting videos in the facility off our iPhones, and then, you know, we did a lot of, because none of us are video experts, and we don't necessarily we didn't necessarily have the equipment, and we didn't really know what to do. And so it was a lot of, okay, let's see what other people are doing. Let's see what people are doing in terms of like podcasts and you know, video logs and these types of things, and what
Right.
kind of equipment do they use, and how do they do lighting, and what do they do for audio and that kind of stuff. So we did, you know, some research on that, and we were, you know, it was interesting to see like the equipment's pretty affordable,
Right.
number one, and you know, like iPhones shoot really well, and they're small and they're easy to get in tight spaces, and like it was easy to get that equipment that we needed to really kind of up our production level in a pretty quick fashion. So but yeah, it, like you said, it was, we weren't doing it, we should have been doing it, and this really forced us to do it. So in that regard, so David, who you had on a while back, he's he always says, you know, never waste a good pandemic. So that's one of the takeaways
Yeah.
that we took from it in that regard, is that it really forced us to do what we probably should have been doing before.
Yeah. Chad, you know, it echoes a lot of what happened with our B2B clients as well, where every year in the planning it was, yeah, we know we need video, we know we need content, but you know what? For now, our sales guys can go out there and talk to people, our service techs can go out and talk to people, and that just turned on a dime. You know, like you said, don't waste a good pandemic. It's true in a sense that a lot of things that were backburnered all of a sudden got on the front burner. So you certainly weren't alone in that. A question that I have regarding marketing is you say that you sell through distributors. What types of tools are working? What types of tools do you provide to those distributors to help them sell into the end customer?
Well, I think a lot of information. So documentation and like these videos have been really successful and helpful. Like I said, we just released this online training course a few weeks ago, and we had our first person that went through the course and completed it. And these are pretty extensive. Like there's 15 hours of video of like actual troubleshooting and maintenance and setup videos that they have to go through. There's a number of modules they have to take quizzes. It's not something that they can just do in an afternoon. So there's a commitment level. But like I said, we had our first person go through, and I called him up afterwards just to, number one, I just wanted to thank him, and I hadn't met this person before. I knew what company he's with and familiar with the organization. Just, again, wanted to thank him and get his feedback on the course, because he's the first one that went through it. And
Right.
just a great individual, service technician. And he said, hey, you know what? I'm 58 years old. I've been doing this a long time. Said, this is the greatest training I've ever gone through in my entire career, whether it was in person, online, whatever it might be. Really thorough. So, that's the type of stuff, I'm not trying to toot our own horn here, but I think being able to have information like that and training materials, that video content is key. Because he said, I've been to your training courses before, and I've gone through the classes, and your personnel do a great job, but being able to have it on video and rewind it, rewatch it, refer to it later, that capability, that functionality is huge. That type of thing, I think, is what distributors. Obviously, the information, your typical and marketing materials are important. But we have a pretty good relationship with our distributors. I mean, it's a very open door, open phone policy. We talk to them frequently. I have conversations with our distributor sales reps and owners and those kinds of things frequently. Really, our whole marketing team does. So, as well as our sales group, obviously. So we've got pretty much that door policy, and so we like to hear what their needs are.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
Shape we do around what it is that they're asking for, what it is that they think would be helpful to help them sell. So
I love what you say there, is you actually listen to your distributors, because we've gone through many iterations of B2B where it's, let's crank out sell sheets, product sheets, brochures, PowerPoint templates, and just, shove it down everyone's throat, not really asking them, are those the tools that you need? So I think that's a good lesson for our listeners, is first listen, talk to some people, see what's working for them and what their needs are. The other thing that I liked about what you said is we're not necessarily going back to the way it was pre-pandemic. I think we've learned something over the past year, that video, digital content, quality content is really kind of that new norm as we push forward. So don't just go back to what you were doing a year ago. You really have to rethink things in a post-pandemic era.
Definitely, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Sticking on that point, Brian, in Chad, of things that have changed and not changed. Chad, I'd like to get your take on a couple things that are of a lot of interest to me. And one of them is your website. Again, kind of using the prior to the pandemic and now post-pandemic. Has it shifted at all? Of like, we weren't considering this as that big of a deal, and it's a big deal for us now, right? So that's one. And the second thing is, and you and I talked a little bit about this before the show started, is trade shows, right? What was your impression before the pandemic? Where are you guys pivoting to afterwards?
Right.
Yeah.
So let's start with the websites. I think the website, as far as like what's the role, I mean, the website I think is just so important. So what we're seeing is buyers they're getting all their information, and the website is really used as kind of a pre-sales tool. Like the people that are viewing that are getting everything, all the information that they need to buy, right up until the point of actually pulling the trigger to buy the product. So we try to get as much information out there as possible. Obviously, like features and benefits and images and things like that, all the options that are available. But more than that, and I think, and that's maybe what we've added or trying to get more information of. It's like videos and product demos, application videos of the systems running and giving them an idea of here's how it looks, here's what the system looks like, and here's what it can do for you. Testimonials. So all that I think is super important. It's obviously got to be easy to navigate. If your user's frustrated, they're gone. So it's got to be easy to navigate. The user experience is critical. But again, since we're selling through a distributor, we really only take that transaction so far. So we want to inform that the viewer, the prospect, give them as much information as possible in order for them to make a decision. And then we want to capture their information so that we can pass it on to a distributor. So that's kind of how we look at it. The website, I think, is very important. Second part of your question in terms of trade shows, yeah, I think that we're at a pretty big turning point, I think, with trade shows. A lot of trade shows we had trade shows that we had done that basically just canceled. And there wasn't anything. There was no backup plan. There was nothing. It was just like, hey, 2020, it's just never happened.
Right.
We'll get back in 2021 and 2022, whatever it might be. So, and then we had our big major trade show, which is a major packaging show called Pack Expo.
Yeah. Yep.
And Pack Expo actually, I think, did something that was the right thing to do, and that's actually have a virtual component. And so, that we had obviously had some, I don't know if we had some issues with the Pack Expo, had some issues with the virtual component, but it really taught us, I think, a lesson in terms of what can be done. So the way we took that approach was we basically, and I mentioned this before, we had these kind of studios set up in our facility to showcase our equipment, and so we had 3 studios basically, where we actually were doing live demos. People would sign up to see a demo, and they would basically sign up and say, okay, on that Tuesday at 10, I'm gonna go watch a Eastie video on an L-bar sealer for 15 minutes. And then at 1 o'clock, I'm gonna watch an AFM demonstration
Very
for
cool.
15 minutes on a LX150, one of the shrink sleeve pieces of equipment. And so we had a schedule throughout the week with all these live demos, and it was truly live. Like it was Saturday Night Live for us. And with, all the stuff that can go wrong there. On the first day, the system unfortunately crashed. But so we sort of had to pivot from the pivot. And basically the next day we basically took everything, instead of using their platform, we ran everything off of Zoom. And so we sent out links to run off our Zoom because that we were fine with that, and we had some experience running that. And we were able to actually conduct the live demos on the Zoom platform. And it worked out really well. And I think what we learned is A, it can be done. And B, we can reach a pretty wide audience of people that weren't going to be able to go to the trade show in the first place. So whereas, this Pack Expo happens to be in Chicago.
Right.
Yep.
And so it's a very large trade show. It's one of the one of the biggest trade shows in the country, held at McCormick Place. And so, we get tens of thousands of attendees that go to this trade show, but you don't get everybody. And you don't get it's an international show, but you don't get as many international people as maybe you could. And so I think as far as like where could trade shows go, I think it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid approach, like still have the in-person show, but I mean, why not have a virtual component where you can do the same thing, have some people sign up where I couldn't go to the show, or, my company only sent 20 people, not 40. But I can still sign up and I can do these demos virtually, or if I'm, in Europe or wherever it might be, I can watch these demos like I was there, and you can reach a wider audience by having kind of a hybrid setup. I mean, we've got all the equipment set up. We've got the people there, everything's there ready to go. All we need to do is basically have an online link, and we can run it off Zoom or whatever platform you want to do it. Everything's there ready to go. So I think maybe that hybrid look is something that we could see down the road. I think that would actually be a good thing.
Good question I have, and I want to kind of stick on this a little bit, but maybe approach it from a different, from the back door. When we talk about marketing, with you and even other guests, understandably, the conversation always goes toward or to how we have to pivot to the new. What's the new normal? The new types of channels, approaches, technologies that we have to embrace. But I think not everything, obviously, that we left behind pre-COVID was bad. So my question to you, Chad, is what are you excited to bring back? What do you miss? What do you see? Because obviously we get the new. We're going in that direction. Every business is facing the new. We're changing how we do business. We're pivoting. But what have we been missing, and what do you want to bring back? Whatever that might be from a marketing perspective, sales, whatever. What do you miss?
Well, I mean, and I'm not a salesperson, and I'm not out in the field. But certainly miss the contact with our sales teams, with our distributors, with end users and customers. I mean, I'm really looking forward to our Pack Expo shows on for this fall in Las Vegas. So I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the industry. I mean, we've all been through such an interesting time, and people have handled it all differently. So I'm excited to kind of hear how others are doing, and looking forward to seeing people. I mean, when COVID hit, it was the week before we were at a Pack Expo trade show in Philadelphia. And and it was honestly the following week is when everything got shut down. So there's just a lot of memories there with kind of the industry as a whole. I'm looking forward to seeing people, definitely, and talking to them. So that face-to-face thing is, I mean, even just with our company here, like we've got a number of people that are working in our facilities. Obviously, our manufacturing and production teams are here, and we've got some other employees in the buildings. But we still have a big percentage of our employees that are working remote. So I'm looking forward to seeing.
Chad, what's interesting is I think it's company by company. You have to look at things because it's not going to be one way or the other. It's going to be a hybrid. And I like the way you use that because what we're finding as we work with our clients is some of their customers will revert back to their old ways overnight, face-to-face meetings, trade shows. And then there's others that have said, no, you know what? We found ways to become more efficient through technology. And it doesn't mean we're not going to ever see you again, but it just means that we don't have to be as one-on-one anymore. We want to have libraries available to us where we can go to your website to get information. So I think for people listening, I caution them that way is really talk to your customers and figure out how they're moving forward with their business. Is it full steam ahead, or is it going to be, we're going to start to do things a little bit differently, and we want our vendors, to kind of go along the way that we're going. So it's hybrid is just a perfect word, I think, as we move forward.
I think that's a good point, Brian. Yeah, definitely.
Chad, one of the things I want to touch on with you, because it's really of interest to me, is branding. I'd love to get your take on how you view it for the customer, but brand also spills over into company culture. And I want to get your take on that as well. David had some very, very interesting thoughts about that. I was super impressed with what he's done with the company and his approach. But I'd love to hear your take on branding of how do you build a brand that's heavy duty B2B where you're using a distributor model?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, branding, obviously, as a marketing person, I mean, branding is so important. Our goal in terms of branding is when someone sees one of our products, number one, we want them to have heard of us, so maybe have some familiarity with us, and number two, we want that to be a positive response. So we want them to have a favorable impression of who we are. So they might not know everything about us. They might not know, everything that we do or everything that we offer, but
Right.
they should have some familiarity and should be positive. And so that's really, I think, our goal. We try and keep it pretty simple in that regard. But that gives the sales rep, I feel like, gives them a little bit of a head start. And so that's really the goal. And as a marketer, that's, we're trying to make their job easier. So whatever we can do to help them. I mean, I'm not in sales. Our marketing team, we have a pretty distinct division between marketing and sales. Some organizations, you've got sales and marketing under one umbrella, but we're pretty distinct. And so really our role is to help the salespeople sell, and that's really what we're trying to do. So give them that impression, make it favorable, and then back them up with any materials that they need to help move the sale along and close the deal. That's really what we're trying.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No. So as a follow up on that is, and this is interesting. I didn't. A lot of companies, Chad, will have problems with marketing and sales, right? It's kind of the age old struggle. It's like, hey, I can't close enough deals because you're giving me crap leads, right? And that. How do you guys manage that relationship between connecting and working together as a team as opposed to just separate? What are the
so right there is kind of always that a little bit of a friction point between sales and marketing. I feel like I've been pretty fortunate where I've really never had that experience. Like our VP of sales, we get along great. We talk every day. Um, and
Hold on a second, Chad. Can you hear me? Okay, we kind of lost a little bit about your from your presentation or your answer right there. Where you kind of left off was you've got a really good relationship with the head of sales, and then you kind of lost you. So if you wouldn't mind repeating.
yeah, sorry, I'm getting some feedback actually. Not sure where that came from, but
No worries.
okay. So yeah, no, as far as the experience with the sales team, I've got a great relationship with our VP of sales. We work very closely together. Same with our sales managers, and even our individual sales reps. I mean, we talk quite a bit, virtually every day. We're discussing things, and so I think that relationship has been pretty good, and I feel like it's kind of always been that way. Um, from my career, I think as an organization, we've always been a sales-driven organization, and maybe that's part of it. Our founder was, he was the consummate salesperson. He was driven. He just loved to sell. And David, our current CEO, is very sales-driven as well. So, like I said, it's our job to make it easier for them to sell. They're the ones that are out in the streets every day. They're the ones that are making the calls. And so our goal is just to really, how can we make their life easier? How can we make their job easy? So it kind of goes back to what we talked about before, Brian. It's listening, not just listening to our distributors, but listen to our sales reps. So, I mean, we don't sell. So the feedback that we get from our salespeople really drives a lot of the programs that we offer. So we're very interested in what they have to say, and if they've got an idea or something, we're all ears. Like I want to hear everything about it, and we can't necessarily do everything, but know where they're coming from, and maybe if we can't do A, we can do B here.
Yeah.
We might meet their needs. So
Hey, Chad,
Hey,
just to
quick
stick on. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kurt.
I was just going to say, I was going to stay on culture as well. I guess, Pat, you had said we did talk a lot about culture with David, and I too found that part of the conversation fascinating. Whether we're talking marketing, sales, engineering, manufacturing, digital, it doesn't matter. At some point, there's that internal belief that has to happen, and that is a big part of branding. And unless everyone's really believing and on the same page, that brand, that company kind of becomes kind of like an empty suit, basically, I guess is the best way for me to think of it, because they are ambassadors. No matter what your role is, even though you're not in sales, we always hear that cliche, you are an ambassador for your company when you leave, right? You're talking to people, you're representing your company. We want people to be positive representatives of our company. Talk about your culture. Talk about how you are doing it the right way at your company to market internally to your team.
yeah, so the culture, I think, of our organization goes back a number of years, when we really tried to define it, and we went through the whole traction program.
Yep.
And we spent a lot of time going through that and really trying to define who we are as an organization. And we sat down and we looked at the founder of the company and really, like, how do we describe? I mean, he wasn't in these discussions because we wanted to look at it from a different perspective, but
Right.
we went through and kind of defined like who he is, like what makes him who he is, because we really felt like that was kind of drove who we were as an organization, were sort of some of his characteristics. And then we looked at, based on some surveys that we had done from, again, through like our distributors and some end users, how do our customers feel about us? What do they say about us? And then how do our employees think we are? And so we really went through a lot of that to kind of come up with, who we are as an organization. And so once we kind of took a look at that, and we started to see some very common themes, and we sort of stood back and said, okay, does this feel like who we are? Is this our culture? Things like, yes, we can attitude. Like, we have a lot of people that will bend over backwards and do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so, that was one of the things that we said, is we have this yes, we can attitude. And so again, that was one of the things that we said. It's treating others with respect, making sure, ensuring our coworkers are going to have success. So things like that. We really tried to look at who we are, from top down, what other people said about us, and how we felt about ourselves. And then we just defined it and said, hey, everybody, this is who we are. And so, we've got things like simple things like putting those on posters, and here's who we are as a company. This is what we do. We help companies deliver their products to the world. Like, it's if our equipment doesn't work, they can't package stuff and ship it out to their customers.
Yeah.
So our stuff has to work, otherwise we shut them down. So everybody understands the kind of the critical nature of what we do. So I feel like our employees are buying into that, and everybody plays a big role in that. We all, it's the designing of the products, it's the manufacturing, it's our marketing of how it works, the sales, the customer service, you name it. It touches every one of us, and we all have to do our own part in order for product to go out the door and everything to work. So I feel like we do have a good culture here. We just recently were named top workplace in Minnesota from the Star Tribune. And that's based on surveys from our employees. It's an internal survey. So people that work here are appreciative of the organization. And like I said, we work together as best we can. So it's a good place to be.
Chad, I'd love to get your take, and I don't want to steal any company secrets or anything like that. But with a lot of manufacturing, a lot of players in the B2B space, trying to find bodies to just be, serving with the company is tough, right? Really tough.
Yeah.
How are you guys doing it in terms of hiring? And because you guys seem like you have a good culture, and it's something that it's not just lip service. I mean, it's something that you guys work on, like day in and day out, right? David talked to us a lot about being transparent, which I think is super important. So it's like everybody's got a say in this, right? Everybody's got like, here's, open up the kimono, guys. Here's the balance sheet. This is what's happening. How is that translating into like getting people to work for Engage?
Yeah, I would say that we have our challenges getting people in the door. I think what we try to do is once we get it, try and keep, if you've got a good employee, then we don't want to start over again. So
Yep.
I think that's a big part of it. Like, let's make sure that we don't lose the good employees.
Yeah.
So, and we've got, like I said, when I started, I was like maybe one of 10. Well, 4 of those people are still with us, right? And I've been here 23 years, so we've got some people that have been here a long time. So there's a lot of people that once we get here and things are going well, it's a place to stick around for. So,
Chad, can you just touch on you started, you had 10 employees, and now how big are you guys? I mean, I know you've got offices worldwide. How many employees do you have? Can you give us a little bit of sense as to your phenomenal growth, which has just been very, very impressive?
Oh, thank you. We're approaching $50 million in terms of revenue. We've got about 140 employees or so, give or take. We've got employees on a global basis. We've got an office in Shanghai. We've got an office in the Netherlands. We've got a sales rep in Ecuador. And we've got people scattered throughout the U.S. in terms of sales and some engineering folks that are working remotely. And then the rest of our employees are here. We've got 4 different facilities here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, manufacturing and production facilities, and just north. So.
And it sounds like it's continuing to just keep on rolling. I mean, again, talking to you, listening to David, it seems like this Engage machine is moving.
We've had a great year. We weren't sure how COVID would affect it, and things. We saw a spike right when COVID hit for about 2 weeks, and then things got real tense for a couple weeks, and then honestly things just took off. So we've been hanging on, and sales teams have done a great job, and the production teams and purchasing and everybody else here, customer service, making sure that product gets out the door, and the marketing groups. I mean, we really do we're fortunate to have a really good group of people here, and everybody's been chipping in and working through some pretty stressful times. And it's still stressful. I mean, the supply chain issues that everybody's facing are real.
Yep.
And so, we're trying to keep up with everything and keep our customers satisfied. So, but things have been going good. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. Chad, you seem like you guys seem like a nimble organization. I got that sense from talking to you. Got that sense from talking to David. I love the phrase that you use. We had a pivot from our pivot.
Yeah.
Do you wake up some mornings and just go, I can't believe we got like 3 studios here. How did we get to this place? It's like, I'm creating content, like online content classes. It's like,
yeah.
does it ever strike you as like, holy cow, I can't believe what our team did.
Yeah, yeah, things change, and sometimes you're like, okay, I wasn't expecting to do this. I think David had mentioned to you some of the things we do for like our quarterly company meetings, and we do these company videos, and David likes to have a good time, and he's got a really good sense of humor, and so we try and make these funny videos. And so sometimes I feel like we're on the set of Saturday Night Live, and we got to come up with new script here. But some of that can be stressful, but it's also fun because it's different. And it gets you out of your comfort zone a little bit, and I think that's always a good thing too. So it pushes you a little bit. So yeah, no, those things are definitely interesting, and I think it makes you a better person, better too. So it's all good.
Cool. Chad, we are at the end of our time. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, sir, so much for being on. Thanks for sharing what's going on with you, with Engage, and good luck in the future, man.
Oh yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it. It's great to meet you folks. Congratulations on your Milwaukee Bucks victory.
Yes.
So,
cheers.
Yeah, cheers to that.
Thanks, Chad. Bye-bye.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.